This is not America's Next Top Best Friend.
I've had enough of you, you beast. Beast? Yeah.
You need to watch yourself before you get checked.
Who gonna check me, boo?
Shouldn't never call me a fat ass Kelly Price.
Everything about you is perfect. Did you stone those tights? Oh, you're smiling.
And would you stop taking pictures of yourself? Your sister's going to jail.
Empty chair, do a solo.
Bye, pumpkin. Bye, pumpkin.
How do you know what's good for me? That's my opinion!
This is the Recap Episode, a weekly podcast about exploring and analyzing the stories told by reality TV season by season. I'm your host, Walker, social scientist and reality TV superfan. For each episode of the podcast, I watch a whole season of a show, then recap the main events, analyze what we get to watch, and discuss what that season and show have to say about the people in the show and how it influences you as a viewer. For this episode, I'm covering Glam God with Vivica A Fox, a competition show about fashion and styling. And y'all, it's kind of a weird one, so you'll want to listen into this. If you like what you hear in this episode, then consider giving the show a follow on your preferred podcasting platform, rate and review the show, and follow the pod on social media, on Instagram and TikTok at The Recap Episode. So, Glam God with Vivica A Fox is a show all about celebrity styling. If you're like me, you probably have a vague idea of what that profession entails. Stylists just help people figure out their fashion, figure out their look, figure out how they want to present themselves to the world, and then help people make that happen. And then celebrity stylists specifically do that for celebrities. There's also a personal stylist, which can help you, decide what kind of sweater you want to wear, or what kind of accessories you want to rock all the time, or maybe figure out what color family your skin tone is in. And then there's also catalog stylists. Those are the ones who are helping figure out the clothing story on like a photo shoot for catalog or some other kind of fashion campaign. If you're like me and you have a little bit of a passion for fashion, then this show might sound really interesting to you. And it certainly is interesting. That's a great word for it. If you want to check it out for yourself, it is available for free on Tubi and also I think YouTube. You'll have to contend with some ads, but that's okay. It's an interesting watch. Glam God was created by Chris Abrigo. He is part of the duo behind 51 Minds Entertainment, which has produced many, many well-known shows, including many such for VH1, where Glam God aired. Some of their standouts include Flavor of Love and Rock of Love, the shows with Tiffany Pollard, aka New York, celeb reality shows such as The Surreal Life, My Fair Brady, the shows following Lala Vasquez, and later on, the Below Deck franchise. We've got a reality TV production superstar here working on this one. I've actually covered another one of Chris's and 51 Minds Entertainment's competition shows on this podcast, America's Most Smartest Model. That was such a fun podcast episode for me and is actually one of the top shows I like to show people when they ask me about what I've watched for the first time as part of the pod. That show is just bizarre fun. But also, if you're a reality TV fan, you're going to be watching it the whole time with kind of just a confused look on your face. Because you're like, what is going on? What are they doing here? I do recommend going to check out Most Smartest Model on Tubi and or listen to my podcast episode on that show. And I bring that up to say, once I figured out that, Chris was attached because I saw his name in the early production credits, I was like, oh, this is going to be a good one. I really enjoyed Most Smartest Model. I enjoy all the other things they've made in the future in the past. This should be a really good one. Or so I thought. It turned out to be something. Again, interesting was the word. But I had a lot of hype and I had a lot of anticipation for watching this show and getting to see what it was all about. Now you may be wondering, why is it called Glam God with Vivica A Fox? Well, in part that's just because Vivica A Fox is here. She is part of the show. But why Vivica A Fox? I found a quote from a newspaper called the Culvert Chronicles that put out this article in March 2008, which was a couple months before the show aired in August of that year. And I'll just read the quote directly. It says, Vivica is a movie star and a fashion icon who knows how to step onto the red carpet and nail it every single time. Says Jeff Ode, Executive Vice President, Original Programming and Production at VH1. Her instincts are impeccable, and she knows how critical it is to have a glam god she can trust to create a star-making killer look. We are thrilled that we have her vision and insights to drive this show. So that's why Vivica's here. Star power. The two movies that I jumped to and I'm kind of like, what was Vivica in, was Independence Day and Ella Enchanted. That's where I can like most remember her roles. But in 2008, she had starred in two major releases, the military comedy film Private Valentine, Blonde and Dangerous, and the drama film Whatever She Wants. And then she was also doing Glam God. So, definitely of the times, she had that celebrity status, she was out there, and I guess she always kind of has an eye for fashion and wants to be styled really well, so here she is. Now, I couldn't find out much else about the production and the history and the creation of this show. I usually like to try to give that background when I can, but I just couldn't really find much here. My research didn't take me that far in that department. But I will speak about something about a little like weird vibe of this show. If you've watched a lot of reality competition shows, especially some of the VH1 ones, you'll notice that they love to do these sort of exterior panning shots as a transition between scenes, and you also may have noticed before that a lot of these shows take place in some kind of large house or a nice building, usually because they have the contestants living on site, and part of the drama they get for the show is the contestants living together, which I'll talk about in a moment. Like, for example, Most Smartest Model was shot in some kind of house mansion thing that they used for the show. This show, I think, was just filmed in like a warehouse or some kind of industrial loft, because every exterior shot is like a parking lot or like a window that just looks like a warehouse window. It's really bizarre. It feels like the budget for the show was really, really low, like less than $1 million. Probably. And I only bring that up just because it really does kind of like set the stage, set the scene, tell you the early vibe going on. You're like, okay, this is what we're getting ourselves in for, is something that's not going to be too glamorous, to harken back to the title. So now we can get right into the recap. Before I cover each episode and the overall show, I do again want to encourage you to seek out this show. It's kind of a weird one. If you're a reality TV person, I think you probably like find some kind of enjoyment out of it, or at least gawking at it. If you're not a big reality TV person, just listen to my episode. If you only want to check out one episode, I would recommend episode 4. If you want to check out only 2 episodes, I recommend episodes 3 and 4. And if you want to just watch 3 episodes, I'm going to say you should just watch the whole show. It's only 8 episodes long. So, Glam God aired on VH1. Again, 8 episodes between August and October of 2008. This show is a reality competition, so you can expect fly-on-the-wall footage of the contestants completing work for challenges, working together, and getting into conflicts. All of this is supported with interviews from the contestants, mostly after the fact, but every now and then they've done one in the moment. The show also used the contestants living together as part of the draw for the show, so every now and then we get some minor story beats about the relationships between the contestants as they have been forming outside of the challenge setting. Now, normally for a show like this, the structure I like to cover it with and recap everything is to just kind of go over the first episode in detail to give you a taste of what the show is about and what it's like. Then I usually cover all of the challenges just to get them out there and then explain and kind of give them names. And then I like to analyze each contestant's storyline on the show, because that's usually what these reality competition shows focus on and try to produce, and how they keep you engaged. Yes, the challenges are entertaining, but what's going to keep you coming back each week? It's going to be having good contestants with strong personalities, and you finding someone maybe you want to root for, or maybe someone you don't like and you want to see them punished. However, the show doesn't really do that well. So I am just going to cover every episode going forward and kind of analyze it as we go along. And I think that'll kind of also shed some light on some things I want to point out near the end. So, episode 1, it is the first episode, of course. So this is when we, the audience, are introduced to the show, its concept, and the contestants. The first thing we see, aside from the weird outside of the loft warehouse thing, is we are introduced to the contestants. We get their names, and they tell us a little bit about themselves, or at least the styling they like to do. For example, we have Preston from New York City, who self-describes as preppy and classic, but with a young, fun twist. Jess, who leans towards very classic American looks, but loves to work with accessories. Chris, the, quote, stylist by fate, whose parents met in beauty school, and he grew up in a beauty salon, who loves timeless and classic fashion. There's Coxie, a stylist and makeup artist with a line of home and beauty products, who's trying to establish herself as the younger and edgier Martha Stewart. And Handry, who tells us, quote, if I don't have fashion in my life, I will die. It's that serious. There are 12 contestants overall of various backgrounds, style preferences, and career goals. Vivica A Fox then walks in next to greet all the contestants, and we get a fun little freeze frame of her that explains that she is a red carpet diva, television actress, and box office bombshell. The show's a little bit building up of Vivica's ego, and sometimes that tends to happen with our celebrity hosts. Just look at Tyra Banks, for example. Vivica shares that the contestants are competing for the Glam God title, the opportunity to be represented by a major styling agency, and a $100,000 grand prize, which, that is a lot of money. $100,000 in 2008? Yeah, and this is before the recession hit, mind you. Vivica then introduces her co-judges, Melanie Bromley and Philip Bloch. Melanie Bromley, at the time, was the West Coast Bureau Chief for the U.S. Weekly. She's also British, but does most of her work based in the States. I bring that up because Vivica, every time she introduces her at judging, calls her our own little British invasion, in a cute little way. Philip Bloch is the resident Glam God by title. He's a celebrity stylist, designer, and TV personality. He's here to provide insight into how others in the industry will judge the work of these stylists, even though he himself wears some questionable outfits throughout the course of the show. But hey, taste is a personal matter. After all these introductions, we are immediately thrown into our first challenge. 4 of the stylists are chosen seemingly at random to be team leaders. The classic but flashy Jess, simple and bold Tiger Lily, the chic Joaquin, and the refined but simple Christopher, or Chris. The team leaders are tasked with assembling teams of 3, and this is where some of the confessional shit-talking starts. Tiger Lily remarks that it's hard to believe any of these people work in fashion, given how they themselves look. Indacio says that Tiger Lily is stuck up, and Jess says that Indacio is too over the top and uncontrollable to be a good teammate. There's an attempt here at some early conflict when Indacio tries to double-cross people by first committing to Jess's team and then changing to work with Preston's team, but that's moved on from so quickly, you're like, well, what was that all about? Why do we even do that? I guess if anything, it just goes to show and kind of supplant early that Indacio is one to be careful with, and he's kind of a little shithead, but I digress. After the teams are assembled, Philip presents the challenge. All teams are given the same black dress. The idea here is to style it the best. Pretty straightforward. And this is the job of a stylist. The stylists get 2 hours to brainstorm, pull any accessories or anything else they'd like to get their look together, and then style their model. I will point out, I will say it here just so it's been said and it's kind of clear, the stylists for these challenges have to do most of the work regarding the clothing and accessory looks. Hair and makeup comes into play for the judging, but the stylists themselves don't have to do the hair and makeup themselves. They get to decide what the direction for that part is, but they have a team of hair and makeup kind of stylists there to help them out with that piece. So now that we're actually in the challenge itself, the show presents some more conflicts between the teams. Chris wants to keep things simple to the point where he's putting down his other teammates' ideas and inputs. And in Jess's team, they have some contrasting visions, but ultimately decide to do some surgery on the dress they're given to convert it into a shirt or blouse. And after Jess cuts it all up, only then does she look at the label and realize it's a Vera Wang. One of her teammates, Bo, who actually becomes one of the regular narrators of the show while he's on, comments on this decision, saying, quote, "I'm all about standing out, don't get me wrong, but don't be tacky. Tackiness is a crime." He's very Southern, that's why I did it like that. Tiger Lily and Joaquin's team seem to be fine at this point. They work together effectively. It's okay, that's not cool, we move on from them. The challenge time is up, so then we move on to judging. Typically, the photos of the styled looks are taken, and then this is what's judged, not taking up too much of the model's time. And I'll bring it up now. There's some pretty bad ADR post-narration added into the judging intro scene. You can hear it very clearly if you're listening to it when Vivica introduces her judges again. So in judging, each of the teams gets to explain their look and the choices they made, and the judges provide their praise and or critique. Usually more critique. Joaquin's team ends up doing well for their choices with the dress, and Tiger Lily's team gets praise for their interpretation and how they added on to the dress but retained its original vibe. Tiger Lily's team are the winners of the challenge, and they also receive new portfolios for their win. The other 2 teams were the worst looks. Oh, and look, it's the same teams that were having teamwork problems earlier. For this first episode, 2 people are going home. one from each of these bottom two teams. Chris's team's look was just way too simple, to the point where Melanie asked how their look took them 2 hours to put together. Philip wanted more pizzazz, Melanie just didn't like it, and Vivica wanted some more pop of color. They really just kept the simple black dress black. When asked what happened, Chris's teammates spoke up and said that he didn't let them contribute their ideas. Coxie ends up eliminated from Chris's team. She played the game wrong, I'll just say. Firstly, she would not let any of us forget that she has a psychology degree. That's all I know about Coxie. She wants to be an edgier Martha Stewart, and she has a psychology degree. When her teammates Chris and Hendry argued over what decisions to make for their look, Coxie decided to try to weaponize her psychology degree to help out with the teamwork aspect and get the arguing to stop. As Vivica would say when she eliminated her, she really should have put more energy into the styling than trying to manage the teamwork stuff. It was, again, a really strange way to approach the challenge in the competition, and she didn't display any of her, styling talent, so she got sent home. Jess's team was the other bottom team. Their look was like a punk rock glam vibe. Remember, they're the one that cut up the dress into a shirt. But they were immediately called out for destroying the dress. Although Vivica does appreciate the courage to take a risk like that. Melanie says that they won with the style of the outfit, but they lost horribly with their makeup and hair choices. And then again, Beau chimes in, just during the judging, to try to talk about how he did the best he could, but he's not the leader. The elimination from this team is a contestant named Aaron. He didn't do or say much in this episode. All he ever really shared was that he likes to help people feel confident in one of his intro confessionals. Aaron, after I did some digging, ended up being an even more interesting case than Coxie and her psychology degree. Apparently, Aaron is now like a men's lifestyle blogger YouTuber. He has a video on his YouTube channel, Alpha M, which has 6.93 million subscribers at the time of me recording, about how he essentially bullshitted his way onto the show. He had been on Fear Factor, he had done some Shark Tank before, and then he went on Glam God to kind of help continue getting media exposure and getting himself out there. For the casting, and he talks about this in the video, he kind of just brushed up on female styling trends to give himself some knowledge and study up, and basically just sold himself on personality alone, which is kind of funny to me. And he has a lot of personality in his YouTube videos, but in the show, he was just not shown at all. As much personality as he sold, everyone else's personalities were much stronger. And he kind of alludes to this because he realized once he got there for filming that he was in way over his head, and everyone else was actually a stylist. But he got the call to be on the show. He didn't last long. And this explains so much to me, because while I'm watching the show and I'm taking notes, I'm like, why did Aaron do nothing in this first episode? Why did he, barely get to say anything? Because he really did nothing. And I just want to say it here because I had to hear it every single episode, and it didn't click for me until, episode 4, what Vivica was saying when she eliminates someone. After an elimination, Vivica delivers this very somber line of, "Keep reaching for the stars, because you're not ready to style them." Which for all I was like, what does that mean? And she's referring to celebrities. Which I'm just that's such an on the nose elimination line. That's one for the books, I think. I'm gonna say. So that's the vibe we're working with on this show. If you're used to reality competitions, you may have already noticed an important deviation from the standard skill competition format. There was only one challenge. There was no mini or introductory challenge to determine some kind of advantage, or at least who the team leaders would be. We just jumped right in. I didn't cover it too much, but we also didn't get a lot of detail about the contestants so far during their intros. I don't know where these people are from, why I should be interested in their stories, or much of their experience in the field of styling. These are two big problems that I think this show has to contend with, and I'll circle back to these later and kind of talk about them a little bit more in depth. Moving on to episode 2, we jump right in to the introduction of a guest judge and presentation of the challenge in this episode. The guest is Amy Garcia, actress, at the time known for The George Lopez Show and Spanglish. We have more randomly assigned teams for this challenge, 5 pairs this time. Each team gets 15 minutes to consult with Amy and Vivica. Then are tasked to put together a look for Amy's red carpet debut that aligns with her tastes, complements her physique, and will make a statement. Each team gets $1,000 to go shopping for items to use for their looks, but the twist here is that only one member of each pair gets to go shopping. They get 30 minutes to decide what they want to do and plan, and then half the contestants are sent to shop at Mosky, a store I've never heard of. Of course, as you may expect, for most of the teams, the shopping was very polarizing. The person who went shopping grabbed items for their vision, not really taking into account the vision of their teammate. It sounds like there's a bit of a theme forming here. Jess brought back a dress in the wrong size for her model stand-in, but Joaquin is confident they can make it work. Janelle, who has been very overlooked thus far, ended up buying mostly things in her style, but her teammate Beau feels confident he can make things work. And Dacio, thinking about helping Amy make a grand statement, decided to buy this purplish dress with a lot of cutouts on the side, and his partner Matt freaks out a bit, because while Amy said she likes showing her shoulders and her back, she's not necessarily going for sexy, or in this case, whorish. Tiger Lily brought back a black dress, and her partner Chris thinks that this is a lazy and uncreative choice, which is very ironic coming from Chris and his performance in the previous episode where he made lazy and uncreative choices. And as for Team 5, they actually seem fine. At the judging for this episode, Amy Garcia assists with critiques and compliments and also ends up selecting the winning look. Jess and Joaquin's too big dress got called out. Tiger Lily and Chris's look got called very boring by Mel and Philip. Matt and Indacio's cutouts dress got called out for being too hoochie and not the kind of look Amy is trying to deliver. And Beau and Janelle's look was critiqued on these odd alterations that Janelle decided to make, and there were just too many competing elements of their look. The winning team was the two that I haven't really mentioned so far, Joaquin and Handry. Theirs was simple, but the shape complemented Amy's figure well, and ultimately was the one she liked the most out of what she was presented. And that's important, because allegedly she was going to be wearing this winning look for her red carpet debut. That's part of the, challenge win for these episodes, is that the look the stylist produced is going to be, used soon thereafter for some reason. I hope Amy enjoyed that look for her red carpet debut. Ultimately, Matt, Indacio, Janelle, and Beau end up in the bottom this week. They proceed to get torn apart by the judges some more, and Indacio and Matt are saved because their look wasn't the worst of the night. Janelle is sent packing due to styling too much to her own tastes rather than Amy's preferences. Janelle was really not that much, along with Erin in episode 1, she didn't get a lot of airtime, and then this episode just didn't do a good job. But hey, that's what happens when you go home as part of the first half of eliminations in most shows. The challenge in episode 3 is for the stylist to style a whole band, giving them a look that reflects their music and personality and can start a trend. The band at the center of all this, who kind of seem like they really don't want to be there, is A Cursive Memory. I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent about them real quick. They were actually the first group signed to M Music, the music management provision of Bunham Murray Productions, who are better known for being the creators of The Real World, The Simple Life, Vanderpump Rules, Project Runway, and many other classic and foundational shows in reality TV. This band has this weird, keystone element to reality TV. Their music was used in The Real World and in The Simple Life as a way to advertise the band, to kind of get them out there. And then at some point, they ended up here on this VH1 reality show about celebrity styling. Anyway, the randomly assigned teams of 3 get some time to meet with the band to discuss ideas, and then they get to go shop. One of the teams is going for a very unified look that might end up being a little too simple. Another group cannot find any shoes they want at the store, and the final group struggles to find some jackets they want to use. After working for the remainder of that first day, we skip to the next day, when the teams finish up their plans, dress the band members, and then have the band photographed in their new looks. Tiger Lily's team, which also has the Southern Beau and the bland Matt, are all feeling very confident. When they dress the band, the fit is a little poor, so their confidence fades a bit, and Beau attempts to cover his own hide by taking one of the band members and working with him on his own. Jess, Chris, and Handry's team is actually fine this episode. To skip ahead a bit, they end up winning the challenge this week for their preppy pastel vision that combined the client requests and the stylist's personal tastes and being the most professional of the teams. And I skipped ahead to spend more time talking about Joaquin's team, which has Indacio and Handry. They're very nervous. They're the ones who couldn't find shoes. They don't have any shoes, and they don't know what they're going to do yet, and then Joaquin decides to pop open some champagne to help his nerves. They attempt to rely on just using the shoes the band members arrive in, but oh no! The band didn't bring any shoes. They arrive in robes and socks. Scrambling, they decide that the band's new look will involve them being barefoot, hearkening to a Beach Boys inspiration the band mentioned when they met and consulted. When it's this team's time to dress the band, they're all busy painting their toenails in an attempt to get that trend-setting requirement mentioned earlier. And Philip has to kind of be like, what are you guys doing? What's going on? Joaquin is fully drunk on champagne at this point, which Philip calls out as he organizes them during the challenge. Joaquin makes a big scene as a result, arguing with his teammates, being weird with the band members, and really just ruining literally everything. They eventually get the look pulled together and get it photographed, but it is kind of tough to watch. It's like a little cringy. This dysfunctionality gets brought up at judging, during which the band's lead tells the judges that they like the look this team made, and they would wear it again. But they don't know if they'd want to go through that experience of dealing with Joaquin and the team again, just to be able to wear this look. Ultimately, Joaquin's team could have won if not for all this drama, caused by Joaquin alone. That puts Tiger Lily, Bo, and Matt in the bottom of this episode. Matt ends up stepping up to take the fall and self-eliminate as the one who called most of the shots for their looks. And Vivica and the judges are just like, okay, bye. Like, they didn't even try to, like, choose Tiger Lily or Bo. They're just like, okay, if someone wants to go home, let him go home. Goodbye, Matt. He did okay. I think he mentions earlier episodes that he styles men mostly. And this is the first time in the show that he got to style men. So it does kind of suck that he went home after that. But maybe also he was kind of getting the vibe that he's like, I don't want to do this anymore after 4 episodes. I'm self-eliminating. In episode 4, we start with the contestants in their loft, and Joaquin is still drinking. He even had a shot for breakfast. Now that we're cutting down the contestant numbers, we get more footage of interpersonal drama and conflict to pad out the time of the episodes, whether it's entertaining or not. This episode's challenge has the stylists in duos, again, to make a look for a Hollywood it girl. The stylists get to choose their teams this time. We get funky Jess and Indashio together, classy Preston and Bo, classic yet bold Tiger Lily and Chris, and the unpredictable Joaquin with Handry, who's about to be in for a very difficult time. Oh, and most importantly, this episode is going to be a double elimination. The bottom team will be sent home together. The teams get 1 hour to get their model styled and ready, and then they'll be judged on how well the dress is photographed from every angle. If that seems like a very short challenge, it's because it's actually only part 1 of this episode's challenge. When Melanie comes by to check on the team's progress, Henry pulls her aside to talk about Joaquin's continued drinking and bad behavior. Joaquin has literally not let up with the alcohol this entire time. Melanie doesn't really help at all. She kind of just asks if his inebriation impedes his ability to style, and then reminds Henry that a whole team will be eliminated this week. And Henry's just kind of like looking at her with these like pleading eyes, like, Diva, help. Melanie goes to confront Joaquin about all this drunkenness, but he brushes her off and pushes back, and she kind of just gives up after that. After getting the models ready, the stylists are told that they get to have a night out at the club with their models to show off their looks. Now, if you've watched any reality show where contestants are confined to one place, especially a competition, where everyone is like stressed about what they're doing and performing, then you'll likely be familiar with where this is going. Taking the cast out to party is the easiest way to get dramatic footage, as getting the cast drunk and letting them do whatever they do with the cameras rolling is reality TV engagement gold. If you've watched a lot of reality TV, you might also be predicting that going out in itself is likely another challenge. And you would be correct. And I was correct, because I'm watching it and I'm like, there's another challenge, they're going to be doing something else. And I'm like, either they're going to have to like do something at the club to like present their outfit, or something weird's going to happen and they're going to have to like improvise. And I was correct again. While at the club, the stylists let loose, and some notice that their models have disappeared. Eventually, the stylists are pulled next door, told they're going to an after party, only to be greeted by Philip, who has the next part of their challenge. He presents their models to them, who are all now complete messes. Hair is all over the place, makeup is smudged and ruined, the clothes are torn and stained, and the models are potentially also a little turnt themselves. The stylists are challenged with doing damage control and getting the models ready to leave the club, where they will be bombarded by paparazzi. Their goal is to make sure the paps don't get any shots that would be a big tabloid story. And I'm just going to say it, this was the first like entertaining and cool and interesting challenge of the show. Everything so far I've just been kind of like, okay, that's cool, they're making an outfit for people. This one is like, has a really interesting premise and could go so many different ways, and that makes it interesting. I don't know why it took so long to get here. The teams get to work, all of them honestly pulling out some pretty creative hacks and tricks to get these models looking presentable again with whatever they brought along. Some stylists were smart to think ahead, such as Tiger Lily bringing extra pairs of flats and others bringing backup makeup kits. A scarf ends up fashioned as a new frock for one model, and a Sharpie is used to make a unique print across a stained dress. Then there's Joaquin, or should I say Jackie Blue. When told that the stylists would get to go out and party with their models, the already inebriated Joaquin brought out his drag alter ego, Jackie Blue. In some leopard print and a big blonde afro, Jackie is all over the place, and even ends up taking the spotlight in the paparazzi photos. Henry ends up sobbing in the limo back to the loft after all this, knowing he's already going home. Now, the stylists are ultimately judged in this episode on how well they saved their models look. The guest judge for this one is Adnan Ghalib, paparazzo and ex-boyfriend to Britney Spears. He's here to share how much money or intrigue he would get from the photos taken of the models as they left the club. Two of the teams did so well that Adnan said he wouldn't have any use for their photos. Beau and Preston's model ended up with some visible stains on her clothes that he would get some money for, and as for Henry and Jackie, well, Jackie ended up front and center of their photo. On one hand, their model was hidden by Jackie, so there was no way the paparazzi could get a photo of that model. On the other hand, now we have Jackie that we can make a fool out of. Our, quote, professional stylist emerged as Jackie Blue. Keep in mind, this was aired in 2008, and we didn't even have RuPaul's Drag Race yet. So, drag may be accepted in these circles, but for the tabloids, that would be blown up. Tiger Lily and Chris end up as the winners for this week. Indashio and Jess are runner-ups, while Beau, Preston, Henry, and Joaquin are in the bottom. Joaquin takes no responsibility for any of his behavior. Vivica tries to have a heart-to-heart with him and convince him that he has a problem and needs help, but he's blindly delusional and refuses to hear any of it. Beau and Preston are saved, and then awkwardly, Joaquin is eliminated. But wait, that means Henry should also be eliminated as his teammate and the rules of this episode's challenge. However, as you could probably see coming from 3 miles away, Vivica understands the circumstances and decides to hold on to Henry, saying that Joaquin's behavior should not ruin his chances to be Glam God. This is why earlier when I said if you're going to watch a single episode of the show, you should watch episode 4, and it's entirely for Jackie Blue and this entire catastrophe. And if you're going to watch 2 episodes, watch the previous one so you see the lead up with Joaquin's drinking. Joaquin is such, I don't want to call him interesting. It's certainly intriguing and certainly a spectacle, but it's one of those things that does make you ask, what was going on behind the scenes? Why did production not step in? Aaron, in his video on his channel talking about how he bullshitted his way onto the show in that first episode, did mention that, once all the stylist contestants got into the loft, all of them were, immediately drinking and having beers and whatnot. And I think he said he was sober at the time, and is still sober now, so he wasn't really, indulging in that way. But it's, interesting to know that that was the kind of setup that was made for these contestants. And it does make me wonder if that was kind of a trick from the production to kind of get the contestants more loose and create more interesting footage so they would have more intriguing and dramatic things to put on the show. If so, I don't think it really worked out except for Joaquin. I will also say, as a contestant, Joaquin seemed to be doing pretty well. He had 1 win at least by this point, granted as part of a team, but he seemed to know what he was talking about and had a good sense and a good head on his shoulders. It also seems strange that this only came up at episode 3. I know that we had other story beats and episode plots we were focusing on for the first 2 episodes, but I feel like it'd be better to have had a sprinkling of this in those first 2 episodes so we could really see it building rather than it suddenly appearing in episode 3 and coming to a climax in episode 4. But I digress. We're now halfway through the show, but we have 7 stylists left, so we gotta keep it going. Episode 5 starts with some more weird cast interpersonal stuff, and Indashio and Jess have become a very quick romance and are spending a lot of time together. The challenge for this episode is for the stylists to work in pairs to take a bad look or piece from the past and update it to modern times. Again, there are 7 stylists left, so we get 3 pairs and 1 person working alone. Beau ends up deciding to work alone, and interestingly, the other stylists all decide their pairs based on who hasn't yet worked together. I'm not sure if this is an idea solely from the contestants or if it was pushed by production to get new pairings together and see what happens, but it was interesting to me the footage of them doing all this organizing was included. Handry and Jess worked together to update a pink shoulder-padded jacket, very 80s, very girl boss. Chris and Indashio end up with a pink floral design muumuu. Beau gets a long denim dress with a distressed leather vest, and Tiger Lily and Preston get these brown, red, orange gaucho pants. The stylist must produce a daytime and a nighttime look that updates the outdated item and also uses the item in the same way for both outfits. Vivica stresses that it's very important that they maintain the original integrity of the piece they are working with. They can't just chop it up and use it to make something new. Not a lot happens in the rest of this episode until judging. Beau gets some gentle reminders from Philip about maintaining the integrity of his denim dress and his design, and then we get to see some more of Indashio and Jess being all over on top of each other. Preston provides commentary on that, not sure if they're actually into each other or if they're just bored. Oh, and Philip also takes this walk-around opportunity to just completely shit on Indashio's workstation, calling it unprofessional. That felt unprompted, but alright, whatever. Judging actually starts at only halfway through the episode, which I think really does say something about the quality of the challenges and the pacing of the show. The guest judge for this episode is Doris Raymond. She's a vintage boutique owner, which fits with this idea of updating an old item, perhaps a vintage item, to a more modern sensibility and style. Skipping ahead just to kind of minorly spoil, Henry and Jess end up with the win this episode. They took their pink blazer and simply styled it in a more 2000s vibe. Some jeans, a nice shirt, simple accessories. They did well, I will say. And the outfits they made, they look good. Preston and Tiger Lily also actually end up with the win this episode. It's a tie. They cropped their gaucho pants just a little shorter and used the excess material to make a matching flower brooch accent accessory. Their looks were also really solid. I completely agree with the idea of a tie for this episode. Beau ended up going on an adventure in sewing and altering, changing the entire shape and look of his denim dress, thus ruining the integrity of the piece, which was very important, as told to him by Vivica and Philip. He ends up paying for these decisions and is eliminated in this episode. But there's still more in this episode to cover. During judging, Chris and Indashio's looks are not well liked at all. Melanie applauds their confidence in the challenge with the muumuu, but their looks end up more looking like someone who went rummaging in their mother's closet. Chris and Indashio start kind of throwing each other under the bus regarding who made which decision for their final looks. This gets Chris very mad during judging deliberations, so him and Indashio start arguing and fighting back in the loft. This ends up intriguing to me because everyone thought they were working well together, and it turns out they were fighting each other the whole time. Which just goes to show that, like, not only were we not shown them really not working well together and have this kind of twist show up, but it seemed the same way to the other cast members. So sometimes you really just don't catch things despite your best efforts to film literally everything. You can't be inside your cast members' heads, you know? Indashio ends up having like a breakdown of sorts because of all this, crying on his bed and then calling his mom for support, which is very interesting. Most Smartest Model also had one moment in the entire series where a contestant broke down and ended up calling home, and it was like the only time we got to see the phone in the loft being used. Ultimately, Indashio and Chris's looks were overstyled. That's simply it. And Chris ends up being eliminated for having a greater part to play in both looks. Indashio breaks down again on the elimination platform, but Vivica tells him to man up and keep his head up. So we lost 2 that episode, to make up for not losing 2 in the Team Challenge episode when Joaquin went home. They have a very specific set of episodes they're going to make, so because they didn't get rid of 2 earlier, they have to get rid of 2 now. In episode 6, we first start with the aftermath of Indashio's breakdowns. Preston thinks Indashio should have gone home, and Tiger Lily tells us that maybe all of this will wake Indashio up to the nature of this competition. The challenge for this episode is to blend the separate styles of couples into one cohesive style. The examples given are Marilyn Manson and Evan Rachel Wood, as well as Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes. There are 5 contestants and 5 couples, which means we finally get to see all the contestants work on their own for the very first time in the show. In episode 6 of 8. I do really think that one of the problems this show faced is that the stylists were forced to work together for most of the show. Not only do we not get to see how they work independently, making decisions by themselves, until now, but also this setup influences the way that the audience interprets the personalities of these contestants. There haven't been that many good displays of teamwork so far in the show, so one takeaway that you could leave this show with is that stylists, or at least these stylists, simply don't work well together. Or with others. They don't collaborate and they don't want to be forced to do it. It's an unintentional message, but it is there. I also think this made the challenges not as fun to watch. When you have a team like Handry and Joaquin in that previous episode, in which one teammate ruins the chances for the other, that's just not entertaining. We could get behind that if perhaps the person who is dragged down by the other is someone we don't like, or a villain, or someone the audience doesn't want to root for. And it's certainly entertaining to watch the hijinks of Jackie Blue, but it's not so much to watch Handry have to deal with it. Team conflict only works in reality TV when everyone is against each other, or it's a one versus everyone else kind of setup. Anyway, the stylists meet with their models for 10-minute consultations, which are pairs of models with contrasting styles, and they get 1 hour to go shopping with $500 to spend at Jet Rag, another store I've never heard of. Then they get 2 hours to get their couple ready. They're also informed that Perez Hilton will be here to judge their looks. Hooray! Jess has to fuse chic polish with rockstar swagger. Indacio has to combine hip-hop and retro fashions. Handry is working with punk and preppy. Tiger Lily has a rock and roll coming together with a prim and proper look. And Preston is putting together goth and Latina vibes. Which I'm just going to say, like, all things considered, that shouldn't be that hard if you spent any time on Tumblr. Just saying. Indacio has some weird interpersonal stuff in this episode. After being all lovey-dovey with Jess in the last episode, it seems that almost being eliminated changed him, and now not only doesn't like Jess anymore, but has declared war on the rest of the house and cast. Mostly this comes after a moment where Jess and Preston were talking together about challenges or something, and Indacio decided to take this as those two making some kind of alliance against him. Which is very, very ironic considering how he was trying to double play Jess and I think Preston in the first episode. So, we have that. In the judging, Perez Hilton doesn't like anything. He's just here to be annoying and not deliver anything helpful, as he usually does. The winner for this episode ends up being Indacio. He really did do a good job combining the styles he was given, and he wins the opportunity to style Perez Hilton. Hooray! Preston and Jess are the ones who end up in the bottom. Tiger Lily and Handry are saved. Preston's looks were just a little too simple, which is a common critique he's been receiving so far, and Jess just came up short on how she styled her female model. She pulled a lot of chic polish to the guy to make his rock starness kind of reined in a little bit, but then she didn't take anything from his rock star nature to her. So Jess is the one who is sent home this time. Episode 7, we have our top 4. Tiger Lily is very much over having to live with all these fools and how they leave the place trashed. We got a little bit of that at the start of the episode. For the challenge this week, they are creating looks from Paige Adams Geller's newest line of clothing. They first get 15 minutes each to present their ideas and preferred items from the line they'd like to work with. Then, Paige gives each stylist 2 of the items to make 2 looks out of. The order of presentations is randomly drawn, so the stylist who presents first could have the most luck here, and the one who goes last is almost certain to have the worst time, because they'll just be stuck with whatever is left over. Indacio gets to present first, and he gets one item he wants, a trench coat, as well as a vest-pants combo that Paige wants to see what he can do with, wants to see him get creative. Preston is next. His presentation is very organized and clear, so Paige gives him a motorcycle pant and a look that has a cropped short, a silk top, and a jacket. Preston's excited about how this all went. He kind of got what exactly he wanted. Tiger Lily is third. She comes off pretty cold in her presentation, but she keeps throwing out a reference to Bianca Jagger in 1974 that we get to hear about 12 more times in this episode. And she does pretty okay. Handry is last. Poor guy. He gets saddled with whatever is left after everyone else, including a leather pants and jacket. However, he did impress Paige by thinking on his feet and improvising a new presentation based on what was left for him. The stylists use the rest of the first day to plan their looks and work, and then on the second day, they get 30 minutes to pack up everything they need before they head to the runway photo shoot to dress up their model and show off the 2 different looks they've put together from Paige's collection. Preston ends up being the winner for this episode. He delivered exactly what he told Paige he would deliver, and he kept things simple but nice. For once, his simplicity came in his favor. Tiger Lily ends up safe, which puts Indachio and Handri in the bottom. Ultimately, Indachio really only made one poor choice of a sloppy pant hem, and this kind of pulled the focus to the shoe that the model was wearing when Paige isn't a shoe designer. So that was kind of like a, hey, why'd you make that decision? That wasn't great. But the rest of the look was pretty okay. Handri made worse choices. They really came down on him for just pairing the leather jacket and the pants together, even though, and I completely agree with Handri's commentary on this. He was given those two items together as a set. So of course you'd okay, I'm going to style them together. And the judges were like, no, you shouldn't have worn the leather jacket with the leather pants. You should have given her the jacket as an accessory accent piece for her to hold or something. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Handri also had to repair the leather pants. They kind of ripped while they were on the model, and he had to do kind of a messy stitch to fix it up. So this really was just Handri's time to unfortunately be in the bottom and be sent home. Episode 8, we're in our final episode. We do have a two-phase challenge finally, but it's for the express purpose of getting rid of the top 3 down to a top 2, and then figuring out who the ultimate winner is. First, the stylists participate in an interview with Timothy Priano, the founder of the agency Artists by Timothy Priano. I believe this is the agency that will represent the Glam God winner as part of the grand prize. The stylists present the work they have completed as part of the show and explain their experience thus far. This challenge makes the choice to have most of the challenges be team efforts even stranger to me, as now the top 3 have to explain which parts of those looks were their ideas and efforts. They've only had one opportunity to style on their own as part of the show to go off of. Either way, Timothy selects Tiger Lily as the first winner and Indachio as the second. Therefore, Preston is eliminated at this point. These top 2 then get some help for their final challenge. They get to choose an assistant from the recently eliminated stylists, Chris, Beau, Jess, Joaquin, and Handri. Tiger Lily selects Handri, saying that she hasn't worked with him yet, so she'd like to see what happens, and Indachio chooses Beau, despite Joaquin coming in with a bouquet that he delivered to Indachio to try to convince him to let him help. No one wants Joaquin. Tiger Lily and Indachio's final challenge is to style a celebrity. But who? I want you to think really hard about 2007 and 2008 pop culture and predict who this celebrity could be. Do you have ideas? It could be a musician, an actor, an athlete, even a socialite. Maybe it's Nicole Richie, maybe Fergie, Kim Kardashian, Kanye West, J-Lo. She just had those babies. It's Vivica. It was always going to be Vivica. I was watching this episode, and when they started this big lead up, I was like, I guarantee styling Vivica is the final challenge. And lo and behold, I'm getting too good at knowing how producers think. So Indachio and Tiger Lily get $5,000 each to make 2 looks for a magazine cover shoot, and they get to pull a single $10,000 gown from some store that I didn't write down the name of. Indachio's dream gown that he pulled down, which is called the Texas Twister. It's this golden pink, amber kind of colored gown that has a lot of twisting elements to it. Gorgeous gown. Didn't quite fit Vivica, so he has to go for his backup plan, but that's still a very red carpet diva look. His second look in contrast is very Indachio instead, street vibes, hip-hop, contemporary, and fresh. Tiger Lily puts Vivica in a regal purple gown with gold jewelry for her first look. Very royalty, very queen-like. And then the second is more of a badass look, but it keeps having wardrobe malfunctions. Tiger Lily manages to improvise by adjusting the look for the photos, but you could tell it doesn't go the way she wanted it to. In the final judging, both contestants got the critique actually that their first looks were better than their second, and then after being judged on his final challenge as well as their performance throughout the show, which I point out to come back to in a moment, Indachio is finally selected as the winner and is crowned the Glam God. Tiger Lily is our runner-up. And I kind of emphasize there the performance throughout the show. And again, this is where having only team challenges kind of is a disadvantage and a disservice to the contestants. If you look at the track record, Tiger Lily had 3 team wins, 1 team high, and 3 solo high placements, including the interview from this episode, across the show. Indachio, in comparison, had 1 team win, 1 solo high, and was only safe in episode 3. All the others, he was low or that kind of safe, but at the bottom, towards the bottom placement. And so it is interesting to me that they're oh, we're going to take into account your performance throughout the thing. I think Vivica just liked Indachio more. I think she liked the style that he typically went for compared to the style that Tiger Lily typically went for. They both did well, and Indashio is like an incredible stylist now. His career like really launched after this, and he was already doing really, really well beforehand. He bragged about it a little bit during the show, but if you like look him up online, you'll see that he did a lot of good work before and continues after. And Tiger Lily was also already a fashion designer leading up to this, working in the Caymans, I believe, where she's from. But she'd already had like her outfits and her line. Celebrities had been wearing it before this show. So both of them were in a good position, and this could have launched either of them up. I think I would have preferred Tiger Lily to win just because, again, she did do better across the show. But I can see why Indashio was selected as the winner by the end. So, what did I learn about celebrity styling, working as a stylist, and what stylists are like from observing the people in the show? That was kind of the approach that I took to watching and analyzing, is from what I observed, what do I learn about this specific group of people? This group being celebrity stylists, or just stylists in general. As I talked about earlier, the show seems to really push the idea that stylists don't work well together, even if this is an unintentional message. Many of them struggled to collaborate, and when they get judged as a team, they are quick to clarify which elements were their decisions and which were not theirs, as to separate themselves from the parts they had no control over. I'm sure there were times of good teamwork, but they weren't focused on nearly as much as the bad teamwork and the messiness and sloppiness. But again, that's reality TV. Something else I was curious about as I was watching was I was waiting to see whether the show also attempted to make a statement about which styling choices or fashions are better or more preferred or more tasteful than others. Every now and then this did come up, such as when Indashio was told his dress with the cutouts that he made for Amy was too sleazy for the context that the challenge was using, but overall I think the show stayed away from promoting a narrow view of styles and tastes. Instead, judging focused primarily on simplicity and complexity, security versus risk-taking, and the overall performance of an outfit as a complete presentation, shape, fit, color, appropriateness, and client preference or goals. Something the show did promote, however, is that it kind of sent the message that the more successful stylists are the ones who take risks, but they understand their limits. They're creative and they know their references. They know the current trends. They know past trends. They know how when they say, I'm going to make a look that is this aesthetic, they know exactly how to nail that aesthetic. They're not making mistakes and fusing things together on accident. Which is good, I think. You know, it does show that, like, when you're a professional in this line of work, here's what it looks like. Here's how it goes. And that's a good thing to communicate, especially when I feel like styling is a world and a profession that a lot of people don't know about. You know, I like to follow fashion, and I like to try to style myself and wear different aesthetics that I think look good and that I enjoy, but it's like, I'm not a stylist. I don't follow it so intently that I know exactly what are the current trends or what's going to be up and coming, or even always how to best put, you know, two different pieces of clothing and some accessories together. So it does really show that, like, for the people who have invested their time and their skill into developing this line of work, they are professionals, at least in skill, not always in behavior. So was it entertaining? I give it like a flat 4 out of 10. If you watch a lot of reality TV competitions, you could probably predict all of the twists and turns and the outcome of each episode as they happen. It would be more entertaining if it had either a higher amount of challenges or more in-depth, more complex challenges in each episode. It seems like the footage of the stylists working on their challenge looks also wasn't as interesting as it could have been, because we got a lot more footage as the season went on of just other stuff happening, rather than spending time with each contestant working on their looks and having them explain things. I mean, one episode was half judging. We also just didn't really get to know these contestants in any meaningful way. Again, what are their goals? What experiences do they have? Why should I want to root for them to win? Part of the enjoyment of a competition show is picking someone you want to see do well and win, but in this show I just wasn't really drawn to anyone. Maybe Tiger Lily a bit. She had this nice professionalism and expertise, but she didn't have the same personality appeal that Indashio did. But even Indashio's personality got a little grating at some point when he had these little breakdowns in his fits and he was kind of like acting like a petulant child during the show, which again makes good TV, but doesn't make it easy for me to root for him. At one point, I honestly was probably rooting for Preston, but then he was boring. which is the worst thing you can be on TV. As much as you want to like break out of the mold and be creative, there is a reason that like the common reality TV tropes are successful. People like to root for an underdog or someone who comes out the gate with high skill and charisma. People don't want to root for a villain if there's someone who does bad by the other contestants, or the audience thinks they don't deserve the praise that they're getting. People want to see that person taken down a peg. And when you don't use these storylines, yes, you can attempt to make something more out of the box and see if people latch onto it, but you also run the risk of it just not being interesting, which is what happened here, I think. So how would I fix it? Again, I mentioned more challenges, more in-depth challenges. For a show about styling, it really was just like, take this outfit and do something with it. I think there could have been more like complex and complicated restriction on these challenges. Like, oh, you have to make a cohesive look this week, but you can only use like neon colors. You know, something like that. I definitely understand that they were trying to do this like celebrity guest tie-in thing where it's like, oh, the winner is also going to go style this celebrity guest, or their look will be used on the next appearance this guest makes, you know, to try to like drum up interest and keep the intrigue. On the celebrity guests, one thing weird that happened was the ones that got to pick the winning look, Amy, the band, Doris, etc., they, like, once they selected it and the winner was announced, they left. Like, Vivica dismissed them. And then the rest of the judging was just the regular judges. So they, like, were a guest judge, but only for determining the winner. Which is fine, I guess, but it's just like, oh. You're not going to let them, like, also say why they didn't want the other ones? I'm like, but whatever. Decisions are decisions. I do think the show's concept would be fun to bring back. An update, again, with more contemporary reality TV ideas and direction and structure. If that were to happen, the biggest thing I would say that they would need to do to make this show successful and like how to anchor it is make Law Roach the central judge. Right? Like, he'd have to be. If you watch reality TV and I say, name a celebrity stylist, name any celebrity stylist, you might scramble in your brain for a bit to be like, do I even know anyone that does that? And then you might go, oh, Law Roach. Project One Way, Drag Race, a multitude of other things. It's got to be Law Roach. I also think it'd be interesting to gather stylists from different areas of the profession, personal stylists, celebrity stylists, catalog stylists, and use challenges that require knowledge of skill in each of those contexts. This would make things more interesting for sure, because then you get people who are like, oh, I work only as a personal stylist. I don't know anything about doing catalog styling. Boom. You've got intrigue. You've got audiences wondering, how is this person going to perform? How are they going to do? That makes it immensely more interesting than what we got here. Again, 4 out of 10. Definitely one to watch if you're a reality TV mega fan like I am, and you like knowing about shows that people have never heard of, and you can pull this out and you're like a trivia nut kind of thing. And you can be like, oh, did you know Vivica A Fox hosted a reality competition show? And all your friends can say, who's Vivica A Fox? That's all for this. This has been the recap episode covering Glam God with Vivica A Fox. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked what you heard, please consider following the show on your preferred podcasting platforms. That really helps out the show and its direction and growth and continuation. Please also consider rating the episode, reviewing, commenting, sharing your ideas on your platform, or even on social media. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at The Recap Episode, or even on YouTube at The Recap Episode Pod. Again, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, I'll be working on my campaign to get Jackie Bleu on the next season of Drag Race.